tomorrow?
Everyone is doing it tomorrow. Yeah, we're doing the mock interview.
Oh, wow. Hmm. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Most I didn't realize that you guys were all doing it on the same day, but I thought it was going to be more dispersed out through the week. But at any rate, the next couple of days are designed to get you guys in and out of here so you can do your mock interviews. So I'll just be mindful that what time is your mock interview start? Is
7.
7 o'clock again? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. So anyway, today is really light. We're just really here to talk about the interview process. We started talking about it uh, in chapter 10, and so chapter 11 is just piggybacking off of that. Um, Wanted to give a few updates, and I'll just say this just for people that are going to listen to the video. Uh, the midpoint review, I'm still, grading those midterms. So the yeah, midterm exams. So you should get that back hopefully for me by tomorrow. There are a few people that still needed to get those career plans, step ones, written properly. So if you're listening to the video and I've reopened that assignment for you to do, please make sure you do that. It's so important because if you don't do step one right, step two, which is what your guys are doing today, um, won't make sense because you're supposed to create steps for the long term goals. You're going to be setting short term goals today. So if you don't have a good long term goal, then it's going to be very difficult to do your short term goals. It's just not going to make sense. So, for everybody that's listening to the video, please make sure that you check that assignment. I did have some questions about the directional informational interview. I don't know if either one of you saw that, but last week I asked you just to identify someone that you could talk to. It's not anything formal. It's just talking to someone about your career, ideally letting them know what your long term goals are and just getting their feedback as it relates to management. This is important if you are going to start your own business. It could be anybody, next door neighbor, brother, sister, friend, family member. It doesn't have to be anybody, in your field. It doesn't have to be anybody at your job or anything like that. And you can be over the phone. You really just want to get their feedback, like especially if you know someone that's in management, like, asking them questions that you want to know, right? That can help you really think through your own goals. Like, okay, do I really want to, run my own business and be in charge of all these people and have to deal with HR and all that stuff too? So just have a conversation with them. And then this coming week, you'll actually talk about what y'all talked about in the assignment. You'll give a brief recap. So I know one or two people had questions about that assignment, so I just wanted to talk about it briefly. All right. And I'll be finishing up the grades, like I said, later today and tomorrow. So the biggest thing I want you guys to take away from chapter 11 is this thing called first impressions. I think if you've been in business long enough, if you've had a couple of jobs, if you've done some interviews in your past, you know that first impression is a lasting impression. You know that it is important for you to make a good first impression because that is what people tend to remember. Is that not the case? Like we may not remember a lot, especially as we get older, but one thing we do remember is that first impression, right? We and for whatever reason, even when I think about all the people I've interviewed in the past, only the ones that stand out to me are the ones that had this weird situation happen, like which is horrible, right? But that is to the point of why, sometimes it's better to have just a good interview than having this weird interview because something happened with, that you did. It could be anything from you showing up too late and being all turned around or someone that maybe has on too much cologne. Chapter 11 talks about that. Or you're wearing these really odd colors and outfits. And chapter 11 talks about just not even doing any of that stuff because at the end of the day, we've discussed these interview questions. You want them to judge you on the words that are coming out of your mouth. You don't want them to say, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You remember that guy, the one that smelled really funny because they had on too much cologne?" Like, do you really want them to remember you that way? You don't want them saying, "Oh yeah, remember that guy? I didn't even understand what he had on. That outfit was crazy." You don't want them to think about any of that stuff. So in chapter 11, it says, dress like you are going to the bank for an interview. Browns, blues, just basic stuff. They should not even remember your outfit. Why? Because you want them looking into your face. You want them remembering the words that came out of your mouth. You don't want them to remember anything else. You want them to remember how they felt when they were at the interview. You want them to remember your disposition. But the last thing you want them to remember is your tattoos. Can you imagine? Like sometimes, a lot of people have tattoos, and we even talk about just if you can cover your tattoos, do that. Not because they are offensive. It's just because do you really want them to label you the tattoo guy? Hey, yeah, yeah, you remember that tattoo guy? I can't remember. I don't know what he was talking about, but I got really distracted because of his tattoos. Listen, people are human. You just don't want that drama. So that is what subjective elements mean in chapter 1 and how it says try to reduce some of that bias by just wearing, really plain clothes, pull your hair back, have a nice, haircut. If your hair is longer, just put it neat. You want them looking in your face to help reduce some of this bias, right? Another thing, guys, you never know who the front desk person is. I've said this time and time again. Sometimes that front desk person can be the most important person. Make sure that you make a first impression from the time that you get out of your car. You don't know if the person that is pulling up next to you is the person that's going to interview you. Yes, these people are so weird. They will be looking out the window, watching you walk into a building. Remember, you're coming to be on their team. They are already a team. They already have their own dynamics. So you're walking into something and they kind of have to make room for you. You don't even know what the situation was with the person that you may be replacing, right? Maybe that's someone that they loved, maybe it's someone that they hated. Like you don't know what you're walking into. It's like walking into a relationship and you have to meet someone's parents. So always feel you are at the interview with everybody, the receptionist, the person that pulls up next to you. Just be mindful of that. You just never know until you drive off that parking lot. Keep your game face on. Why is that? Again, people are human. I hate to say it, but people are human, and you don't want to give them anything, right? You don't want to give them anything to go on so they can go back and maybe somebody pulls up next to you and you arrived early, so you're sitting in your car and maybe you got your jam on because you need that jam to get you ready. And then the person may get offended by what you're listening to, or they may feel like your music was too loud, and now they go down that rabbit hole of, oh my goodness, this person is going to be a disruptor, or this person going to have that same energy when they come in there. And you just never know how people think, right? So just be mindful of your surroundings when you show up to that job, right? Again, if it's a virtual interview, we talked about this. Make sure you do not have technology problems on the day of the interview, guys. Please, that will not work in your favor. Make sure that if you again have a personality that is a little bit subdued, you're gonna have to just be a little bit more animated when you're in a virtual interview. Hopefully y'all don't have to go through that, but if you do, just be mindful of that. Like, how do I up my energy when I'm on a virtual interview? Make sure you smile a lot, lean into the camera, nod your head, show that you're listening, so show that you are engaged, right? So just know about that. But what's really important, my friends, is this: treat every interview as if it is your first interview. Treat every interview as if it's your first interview. Even if that first interview went off without a hitch, it was a great interview. Um, you knew for sure that you and that person had rapport, but now you have to go meet their boss. This person doesn't know you. Even if that person was like, oh my God, you should have seen Manuel or Isaac. They were great. I can't wait for you to meet them. You don't know the disposition of this person. You don't know if they even like the person that interviewed you, right? So you're going to go into that second interview as if you've never interviewed before. And the same attentiveness, the same, energy that you gave that first interview, give that second interview. Do not get lax. I don't care what that person tells you. Oh, yeah, we really love to have you. Meeting the boss is just a formality. That formality can turn fatal. Like you never know. I'll tell you, I had a friend, we worked at a university together, and he was up for a major position. He decided he wants to go take the next level to take the next step to go up a level. And he had, are you ready for this? 11 interviews. 11. Why 11? He had to meet with admissions. He had to meet with um, uh, academics. He had to meet with finance. He had to meet with students. He had to meet with the board. He had to meet with all these different people. And you know what? Y'all already know what I'm about to say. He did not get the job. Can you imagine? And they loved him. I loved him. I worked with him before. Great guy. And he did not get the job. He was devastated because he just knew 11 interviews. Can you imagine? And then, of course, they ended up going with somebody they wanted in the first place. So that's a whole nother story. But yeah, so you just don't get comfortable with those second and third interviews. I mean, it's great because it shows that you are moving through the process, but definitely don't get comfortable. Treat every interview as if it is your first. Has anyone ever had more than one interview and didn't get the job? Anybody ever experienced that? I don't know if I had more than one, but I definitely
Nope.
had one. And
I
you're
only
thinking
had three. I only had three jobs in my whole entire life, so I want to say no.
only three? Oh my goodness. I don't know how many
Yeah,
I've had.
I'm a
Really?
long-term person.
Oh, listen, I wish we could say that. I don't. Are there any long-term jobs nowadays? Is the bigger issue, right? Um, Maybe a few. I can't think of one company. Of course, when you're older, you always reflect on, jobs you've had in the past. I know the job I had when I was straight out of the military. I worked for a pharmaceutical company in Illinois, and it was one of the best companies I've ever worked for. It was a Japanese-owned company, the best company I ever worked for in my entire life. But unfortunately, I was a kid. I was still in my 20s. I didn't know it was the best company to work for ever. You guys, you want to talk about we got let me just go ahead and reminisce for you. Not only did we have our own cafeteria, yep, with discounted food, we got what they called health days. They would have back in those days. There was Weight Watchers. You guys heard of them, right? Um, they would give us back massages. We had wellness days. They recycled their computers, and you can just go in and take whatever you needed, a computer, a printer, or whatever. Can you imagine? We had stock options, obviously. We had all kinds of stuff. And they really believed in that. Now, because it was a Japanese owned company, they infused some of their culture. One of the things that they did in their culture was whenever you got hired, so if a senior person got hired, I remember I was working in the finance department and they hired a treasurer, right? So she was new, she came on, she was a treasurer. And so what was custom in their culture was for you to serve everyone. So, and I guess it was okay for them, their culture, but they invited you to their house and they cooked dinner for you and they served you, right? So any senior level, can you imagine a senior level person invited everybody in their department, upper and lower, and then they served you? Can you imagine? And that was their culture. I had no idea I was at one of the best companies ever, right? Now, even with that though, Isaac, you know what ended up happening? They sold, they divested, they broke off into two different companies. And even with that, they were very thoughtful of the people that worked there. We knew 6 months in it, but actually we knew a year in advance that they were going to split. They gave you an option if you wanted to go with the either side of the company. If you were going to lose your job, they even brought I don't know why this goes on mute by itself. They even brought in people to help you find jobs 6 months in advance. Can you imagine? It's like unheard of, right? And but I tell you, if had I had any common sense, I would have stayed. But common sense is not common when you're a kid, right? And so I did leave. But outside of that company, Isaac, I can't think of any other place besides the military that is still even around, right? Because some of you think about our parents, they stay at jobs for 30 years, 20 years. Anybody has anybody they know at a job more than 20 years? I know my brother works at the hospital. He's been doing that for 20 years. But That's pretty hard pressed, right? To find jobs that you can stick around for 20, 30 years. But hey, if it works, you know, that is good, especially in today's society, right? But um, the last thing I want to tell you guys, and believe it or not, we're probably going to get out of here really early, um, is like I said before, you may get a second interview, you may get a third interview, but at the end of the day, you're still, if you don't have a job, you don't have a job. So you need to do what? Continue to interview. So after you go back home and you're really waiting to see what the next steps are, you need to be reflecting on, okay, I've heard what this person has said. Am I going to accept this job if they bring it to me? What am I going to accept the amount for? Do I feel like I need to negotiate? Do I feel I need to take whatever they give me? Like, you need to go back home and do some self reflection so that you can be ready when they do respond to you. But what you must do, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, it's probably on Thursday, I believe. Make sure that you are sending those people a thank you letter, letting them know that you appreciate the time that they've taken to interview you. You don't understand how far that goes. Sometimes it can be the difference between you and the next person. I had a student, I always have students, I've been teaching this class for a couple of years, tell me, Miss Taylor, they told me they were so impressed that I sent them a thank you letter, and no one's ever done that. And that is just a follow up. And I'll show you guys on Thursday what you're supposed to say in that. Even when you do your mock interviews with Miss Tiller, make sure you send her a thank you letter. It's going to be one of your assignments. And it's just going to be via email because that is so important to let people know that you are appreciative of the time that they've taken with you. But guess what? After you've done that, it's almost like you're going to put it on the shelf. It's almost like dating, right? You don't just go on a date and then get married. Um, you continue to date. So you're going to continue to look for jobs. I mean, again, if you choose to ask them that question that we talked about, where am I in the in your interview process? Am I the first, for example, or am I the last? If you're definitely the first person that they've interviewed and they're talking about interviewing people for the next couple of weeks, listen, continue to put those resumes out and be aggressive about it. I don't care how much you like this job. Do not hang your hat on this job, all your eggs in one basket, and then they choose somebody else because it happens all the time. You're the best until you're not, right? They can think you're the best thing, and then somebody else can walk in and be like, oh no, I want this person. So you never know, right? So you're just going to manage your emotions and continue to do your job search. So please, guys, make sure that you are reading chapter 11. This chapter will be on your final next week. Um, um, but it just piggybacks on chapter 10, and that's really all it talks about. Like I said, chapter 11 is really short, so actually it makes today's conversation really short. But this is a reading day, so I want to give you time to read. Mondays and Tuesdays, you really should be trying to read those chapters as much as you can. It really makes doing your test um, easier when you've done some of the reading, right? All right, my friends. Well, guess what? That's as much I have for you guys today. Lastly, like I said, we've talked about negotiating, responding, and then signing off, once you get that offer, if you get it. So here's your question for today. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to show me or describe what you would wear to your interview. Why am I asking that question? Your technical instructors should have indicated to you what you're supposed to dress like when you go on an interview. Most of you guys are in the electrical program, I presume. So, did they tell you what you should wear for your interview? Especially if it's a working interview.
Yes.
What did
Yes, they
they?
did.
They did. All right. So that's what I want to hear. Hear or see. Do it however you want to do it. I don't care. Some people take a picture. Some people do a quick little video, or you can just type it in. Please don't tell me shoes and socks. I know that. I want to know what you're supposed to wear. And if you've been paying attention, you should know what you should be wearing for your program. Everybody, all you guys are in the same program, but my morning class, they're all over the place. I have 3 or 4 different um, in programs in one class. So everybody wears something different. So you guys all should know what you're supposed to wear for electrical. So that's what I want to see in the participation question. And guess what, y'all? That's it. That's it. Y'all know this class in the morning goes a whole hour because I have like almost 60 students. You guys are so lucky. It's like 5 of you guys. So,
I have a question.
go ahead.
So on the The assignment, the one we have to do the goals.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
The
Mhm.
template, I'm looking at your template here. Do we have to
Mhm.
do all six different sets of SMART goals, or is it just one?
No. No. So here's how it goes. That's a template, right? So how many you do is going to be totally different from how somebody else's does. So think about your long-term goals. So I want you to take that long-term goal that you had from week one. Let's say it was to become a master electrician. Um, by 2030, whatever you said. And then let's say your second goal was to start my own business by 2035. So you have two long term goals. Those are going to go at the top. And then underneath each one, you're going to have short term goals that are going to help you to become those things. So if your long term goal is to become a master electrician by 2030, then what are the steps from right now, 2025, to 2030 that you are going to take to get to become a master electrician? Maybe your first step will be upon graduating, you may say, secure my first job at a small firm by 2026 because you want your short term steps to also be smart. So that's why they say make it smart. So even your short term steps need to have a date. Secure my first, job at a small firm by 2026. You want to be at a small firm because you kind of want to see what they're doing. Then you may say, for your second short-term goal, study for the master electrician's license by 2028. And then 2029, you may step three, take the master electrician license test by 2029. And then 2030, you become a master electrician.
Those will be the SMART goals, correct?
So yeah, so it's just your short-term steps. Just make sure they're smart. Remember, they have to pass a SMART test. So that's why we call them SMART goals, but they're short-term SMART goals to get you to your long-term goal. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, I have a better understanding. There's how many it takes me to fill up. That's what the template's
Yeah,
showing
it's
pretty
up to
much.
you. Yeah, it's just up to you.
Okay.
Don't pay attention to how many slots are there. You may only have two steps. Like say for example, maybe somebody already has a family member that owns their own business. So they say they're going to go right into that. So my family, let's say my family already had an electrical company. I may say, upon graduating, start my first role with my family owned business in 2026. And then I could say, see what I'm saying? So that may be my step, right? Somebody else may say, start that in 2026. And then they may say, in 3 years, I'm going to go and I'm going to find another job where I can become a project manager in 2028. That may be their personal step because that's what they want to do. So everybody's steps are different. Just whatever your steps are, make sure they have end dates on them. Does that make sense, everyone? So you can have two short-term steps. You can have somebody else can have four. It really just depends on what you feel like you're doing. All right. All right, y'all. Enjoy the rest of your day. Please make sure you read those chapters. I promise you, reading the chapters make the test go a lot smoother. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too, sir.
Good night.
Good night.